Before the wars that shaped the modern world, before presidents carried nuclear codes and spies whispered through encrypted radios, there was an America few people truly understood, an America built not only by generals and statesmen, but by forgotten engineers, codebreakers, immigrant dreamers, silent resistors, and unsung ordinary hands. This is the story the textbooks never told. How a nation of contradictions, freedom and fear, courage and conspiracy, nearly fractured under the weight of its own future. And all of it began with a bolt of thunder over a factory roof in Massachusetts, on a winter night in 1910. Part 1, The Spark. The night snow fell over Holyoke, Massachusetts. It came down in hard slabs, flat, heavy flakes crushed by a sky too cold to let them float. The Connecticut River churned black beneath the mills, and the town's electric lamps flickered weakly as if fighting a losing battle against the wind. Most of Holyoke slept. Except for the men and women inside Building 17 of the Hamilton Paper Company, where a strange ringing hum had filled the air for hours. At exactly 11:03 p.m., a lightning bolt, so clean and white it looked almost artificial, stabbed downward from a cloudless sky and struck the roof of the mill. The factory floor flashed blue. Metal rails hissed. Tools leapt. And in the center of the room, standing at a drafting table, was Elias Whitford, a 32-year-old engineer whose life had been quiet, predictable, and entirely ordinary, until that moment. The thunderclap threw him backward. When he woke, the world had changed. 1. The engineer who saw too much. Elias had always believed the future arrived slowly, the way rivers eroded canyons, or the way a tree ring widened over decades. But as he pushed himself up from the factory floor, the bitter taste of ozone still burning in his throat, he sensed something different in the air. Smoke drifted through the rafters in long ribbons, glowing faintly. The humming he'd heard earlier, an electrical tremor that vibrated deep in his bones, had gone silent. "Whitford! You alive?" shouted a voice. Through the haze, Samuel Ortiz, a wiry Puerto Rican machinist with grease smeared under both eyes, hurried toward him. Elias coughed. "I think so. You're lucky that bolt didn't kill you. Whole town must have heard that thing. Never seen lightning on a clear night." Elias had noticed something else. His drafting table was untouched. But the metal prototype he'd been working on, an experimental rotary blade assembly meant to reduce pulp friction by 18%, was no longer attached to its frame. It lay several feet away, its edges glowing faintly red. And etched into the floor beneath it, were 3 perfect circles, fused into the concrete. "What in God's name?" Samuel whispered, crossing himself. Elias stepped closer, heart thumping. He crouched, ran a trembling fingertip over the circles. Still warm. Impossible. No manufacturing tool in the mill could burn such precise geometry into stone. Lightning couldn't, either. 2. The first missing file. At 11:37 p.m., the factory foreman ordered everyone out and called the Holyoke Fire Department. Elias returned home walking slowly through the snow, replaying the moment repeatedly. By morning, rumors had already begun. The paper mill blew a fuse all the way from Boston. Government men were seen near the factory. They're hiding something in Building 17. Elias ignored the gossip, until he checked his briefcase. His design notes were gone. Not misplaced. Not scattered. Gone. Only one object remained, a small metal sliver, thin as a scalpel and warm to the touch, that he did not remember packing. He held it to the light. The strip bent itself gently, as if reacting to his fingers. Elias dropped it instantly. Metal didn't behave like that. Not in 1910. Not anywhere. That was the moment he realized someone, or something, had been in that room with him after the lightning strike. And they had taken an interest in his work. 3. America at Crossroads. To understand the danger Elias had stumbled into, one must understand the United States of 1910. The Wright brothers had flown less than a decade earlier. Electricity was transforming from a curiosity into a backbone of industry. Immigrants flooded New York, Boston, and Chicago, shaping the workforce. Big monopolies, Carnegie, Morgan, Rockefeller, fought to control the nation's future. And deep inside Washington, a group of men had launched a secret initiative known unofficially as ODMS. Office of Development of Mechanical Superiority. Hardly anyone knew of its existence. Even fewer understood its purpose. ODMS had one mission: to ensure that no foreign nation could surpass the United States in engineering, physics, or industrial capability, by any means necessary. And now, unknowingly, Elias had created something they wanted. Something they feared might rewrite war, industry, and global power. A knock at the door. It was 3 days after the strike when the knock came. Sharp. Measured. Not the kind of knock a neighbor used. Elias opened the door to find 2 men in dark wool coats standing on his porch. "Mr. Whitford?" the taller one asked. "Yes?" "We're with the Department of Interior," said the other, flashing a badge too quickly for Elias to verify. "We'd like to speak regarding the electrical disturbance at the Hamilton plant." Elias hesitated. "I've already provided statements." "Not to us," the tall one said. "Not a request. A correction." They entered without waiting to be invited. The shorter man scanned Elias's home, walls, furniture, the soot-stained coat hanging near the stove. "We understand you were alone at your station when the incident occurred," he said. "Yes." "No witnesses?" "Only Samuel Ortiz, but he was across the room." The men exchanged a look. "What do you think caused the burn marks on the factory floor?" the tall one asked. Elias froze. He hadn't told anyone about the circles. "How?" "We review all technical incidents," the man cut in. "Do you believe the cause was natural?" "No," Elias said quietly. "But I don't know what it was." He chose his next words carefully. "And I never said anything about burn marks." Both men turned to him. Their eyes hardened. The shorter one spoke first. "Mr. Whitford, if you discover anything unusual in your materials or workspace, you are required to report it to us." "Required by whom?" "By the United States government," he said, as though surprised Elias needed clarification. "Failure to do so may be interpreted as withholding relevant information." Elias swallowed. They knew. They knew the file was gone. They knew something had happened to the prototype. And they knew he wasn't telling them. The taller agent adjusted his coat. "Be smart, Mr. Whitford. Your country depends on men like you making the right decisions." With that, they left. Elias didn't sleep that nig. 5. The immigrant machinist. The next morning at the mill, Samuel Ortiz approached him with a folded sheet of newspaper. "You should see this," Samuel whispered. The headline read, "Mysterious energy discharge felt across 3 states. Scientists in New York register unexplained magnetic surge." Elias felt the blood drain from his face. "What does this have to do with the lightning strike?" he asked. Samuel leaned closer. "That surge? It happened at the same time as the mill flash." "That's impossible." Samuel shook his head. "You don't know America the way I do, Elias. Back home, the government didn't care what we built in our little workshops. Here they'll shut down a man's whole life for inventing the wrong thing." Elias frowned. "What do you mean? You think those 2 men who visited your house were really from the Interior Department? I've seen men like them before. When I worked in New York, special agents took my friend Tomas after he built a magnetic drill that worked too well. No trial. No explanation. Just gone. That doesn't happen here." "You keep believing that," Samuel said softly. 6. The Man Who Shouldn't Exist. Late that afternoon, while Elias was recalibrating a steam valve, an unfamiliar worker appeared beside him, tall, clean-shaven, with eyes too sharp to belong to a factory hand. "You Elias?" he asked. "Yes. Can I help you?" The man extended a calloused but steady hand. "Name's Calder Shaw." Elias waited for the man to explain himself. Instead, Calder spoke quietly, rapidly. "I know what you saw that night. I know what was taken. And I know who will come for you next." Elias's grip tightened on the wrench. "You're mistaken," he said. "No," Calder replied. "But you're in danger of making a number of mistakes yourself." Elias glanced around. No one was watching. "What do you want?" "To warn you," Calder said. "There's a division in Washington dedicated to suppressing technology that threatens the balance of power. When your machine reacted to the lightning, when it fused the floor, they logged you." "Logged me?" "As a potentially disruptive engineer." "That sounds absurd." Calder leaned in so close Elias could smell the coal smoke on his coat. "Absurd," he said, "would be believing that enormous leaps in engineering happen naturally. Absurd would be thinking America rose to dominance without silencing dozens of inventors every year. Absurd would be assuming that bolt of lightning was just lightning." The room spun. "What are you saying?" Calder straightened. "I'm saying the strike wasn't an accident. And the government isn't the only group watching you." Elias stared at him. "Who are you?" Calder gave a strange half-smile. "A friend, for now." Then he walked away. The Republic in the Shadow of Thunder. Part 2, The Man with No File. Snow still clung to the factory windows like a frostbitten web as Calder Shaw disappeared between stacks of timber pallets. Elias stood frozen, fingers stiff around the wrench, unsure whether he felt more threatened or curious. No one at Hamilton Paper Company had ever seen Calder before. Factory workers had routines locked by exhaustion and habit. Strangers did not simply appear, deliver cryptic warnings, and vanish again. Elias wiped his hands, breathing hard. The furnace hissed behind him. The river churned outside. And somewhere in that noise, a part of him heard a message. "You are being hunted." But why? 1. The letter that shouldn't exist. 3 hours after Calder's disappearance, a runner from the administrative office found Elias near the press rollers. "Message for you," the boy said, handing him a sealed envelope. Elias's stomach tightened. The seal was unmarked. No sender. The paper smelled faintly like machine oil and cedar. He opened it carefully. Inside was a single sentence. "You are not safe in Holyoke. A train leaves for Boston at 8:15 p.m., take it." No signature. No date. The handwriting was sharp, slanted, and precise, like a draftsman's or an intelligence officer's. Elias reread it until the words seemed to throb. Who knew about his house visit? Who knew he was being watched? Who knew what he hadn't even told his closest colleagues? His fingers trembled. He folded the letter, slid it into his coat, and tried to finish the shift. But every sound now felt magnified, the grind of the rollers, the creak of the rafters, even his own heartbeat. At closing hour, he found Samuel sweeping near the exit. "Sam, can I talk to you?" Elias asked. Samuel straightened. The look on his face made it clear he'd been expecting this. "Is this about the man in the workshop?" Samuel asked quietly. "What man? You think I didn't see him?" Samuel's eyes narrowed. Tall, odd posture, like he was listening even when no one spoke. "I've seen men like that. They belong to organizations that don't put names on buildings." Elias swallowed hard. "I got a letter," he whispered. "Someone wants me to leave Holyoke tonight. For Boston." Samuel considered this for a long moment. You going to go? I don't know. You want my advice? Samuel said. Go. When men without names start circling your life, staying put is how you die quietly. 2. The last walk through Holyoke. The temperature fell sharply as evening approached. Smoke from the mills curled across the river like a low fog. Lamps flickered to life across Main Street, their glow reflecting on snow that had hardened into icy sheets. Elias walked home with his collar up against the wind, his thoughts circling like crows. If he left, he'd become an exile from his own life. If he stayed, he risked disappearing like Tomas, Samuel's friend. Or like the dozens, maybe hundreds, of inventors Calder hinted at. When he reached his apartment, he hesitated before pushing open the door. Nothing looked disturbed: chair, stove, tools arranged exactly as he'd left them. But the silence was too perfect. He knelt, examined the small metal sliver he'd found days earlier. It no longer bent on its own. But it felt warm. Alive. He wrapped it in cloth, packed a small bag, and locked the door behind him. He wasn't sure if he'd ever see this room again. 3. The 8:15 to Boston. Holyoke Station was almost empty. A telegraph operator snored at his desk. A pair of tired mill workers smoked on the platform. A freight train groaned in the distance like some massive animal waking from sleep. As the clock struck 8:10 p.m., Elias spotted a figure standing beneath the gas lamp at the far end of the platform. Calder. Hands in pockets. Coat flapping slightly in the wind. You got the letter, Calder said without turning. You sent it? No, Calder replied. But I'm glad you came. Who sent it then? Calder exhaled slowly. His breath fogged the air. There isn't time for the whole truth. But I'll tell you this, there are two groups interested in what happened at that mill. One wants to erase you. The other wants to recruit you. Elias stiffened. Recruit me for what? For a war that hasn't begun yet. A war fought not with soldiers, but with machines, ideas, and materials the public will not see for decades. That sounds insane. So does a lightning bolt from a clear sky, Calder replied. So does metal that bends itself. The train whistle screamed in the distance. Elias's skin crawled. What's in Boston? He asked. A man who can explain what you're building. I'm building a rotary blade for a pulp mill. You're building a device that reacts to electromagnetic resonance in ways no one has ever observed. Lightning didn't damage it. It activated it. Activated. The word struck him like a blow. You're telling me the prototype did something? Calder finally turned to face him. I'm telling you the circles on the floor were not burn marks. They were instructions. Instructions for what? The train rounded the curve, lamps blazing. Calder stepped toward the boarding line. We don't have time. If you want answers, come with me. If you don't, walk away now. But understand this, those two men who visited your house? They're already on their way here. A gust of wind rolled through the station. Elias hesitated only a moment. Then he followed Calder into the passenger car. The doors closed with a heavy metallic thud. 4. The man with no file. The train rattled southward through the snowy night, passing silent towns and coal-lit villages. Calder sat across from Elias in a dimly lit compartment. All right, Elias said finally. Who are you really? Calder folded his hands. There are 3 things you need to know. First, the group that visited you isn't the Department of Interior. They work for a division called ODMS, Office of Development of Mechanical Superiority. It doesn't officially exist. Second, they've erased inventors before. Quietly. Efficiently. Third, I used to work for them. Elias's pulse quickened. Why leave? Calder's eyes darkened. Because I found out what they do to engineers who build something that shifts the balance of national power. They classify the inventions, and if the creator becomes inconvenient, Calder reenacted a cutting motion across his throat. You're saying my prototype threatens them? I'm saying it fascinates them. They want to know if your device was the cause of the surge or the result of it. You told me lightning didn't damage it, it activated it. It did, Calder said. For approximately 0.4 seconds, your device emitted a frequency that has only been recorded twice before in American history. What frequency? Calder reached inside his coat and withdrew a folded diagram. A waveform, jagged and unnatural, pulsed across the page. This, Calder said, tapping the line, is a resonance pattern theorized in 1897 by Nikola Tesla. He called it harmonic induction. According to his writings, this frequency, if produced intentionally, could stimulate energy fields not yet fully understood. Elias stared. My rotary blade created that? Yes. Accidentally. And that means two things. 1. Your work is more advanced than you realize. 2. You've stepped into a world you're not prepared for. Elias leaned back, overwhelmed. The rhythmic clatter of the train suddenly sounded like a countdown. 5. The unexpected passenger. At 9:21 p.m., the train conductor slid open the compartment door. Tickets, gentlemen. Calder produced 2 stubs. The conductor punched them, tipped his cap, and moved on. Elias exhaled in relief. Then he froze. Outside the compartment, moving down the aisle, were 2 men in dark wool coats, the same coats worn by the men who visited his house. Calder, Elias whispered. They're here. Calder didn't turn, didn't react. Instead, he calmly reached behind his seat and removed a small wooden box. What's that? Elias asked. Insurance. Calder cracked open the lid, revealing a compact brass and copper device, shaped roughly like a camera but with wiring coiled inside like clockwork intestines. What does it do? Elias whispered. Nothing, Calder said, unless we need it to. Footsteps approached the compartment. The handle turned. Calder mouthed, stay calm. The door slid open. One of the agents stepped inside. He scanned the 2 men. His gaze lingered on Elias. Evening, he said. Mind if we take a seat? Calder smiled politely. Afraid this compartment is full. I wasn't asking, the agent replied. His partner stepped behind him. Calder placed the wooden box on his lap. Elias's heartbeat thundered in his ears. The agent's eyes shifted to the box. What's that? A metering device, Calder said smoothly. For steam tolerances. The agent stepped forward. Open it. Calder did not move. I'd rather not. Sensitive calibrations. The agent's partner spoke for the first time. We know who you are, Mr. Shaw. Elias's breath caught. Calder's smile faded. And you, Mr. Whitford, said the second agent, turning to Elias, need to come with us. Elias felt his throat constrict. On what grounds? He managed. The first agent leaned in. On grounds that you're in possession of classified technology. Now stand. Calder pressed a small button on the device. A soft click sounded. Then. The compartment lights flickered. The train trembled. Static crawled across the air like living electricity. The agent staggered. What did you? The taller one growled. Calder whispered, close your eyes. Elias obeyed instinctively. A sharp pulse erupted, silent but violent, like a thunderclap without sound. The air pressure shifted. Metal groaned. Time felt like it hiccuped. When Elias opened his eyes, both agents lay unconscious on the floor, twitching like men roused from a nightmare. What was that? Elias gasped. 7. Snow, silence, and the man who doesn't die. The impact felt like being hit by a wall of ice. He tumbled down a short embankment, rolled, and slammed into a drift of snow that cushioned the final blow. The world spun. A moment later, Calder landed beside him with the grace of someone who'd done this many times before. Elias gasped for breath. "Are you insane?" "Frequently," Calder replied. "Come on." They scrambled to their feet. The train continued into the night, shrinking into a glowing line before vanishing entirely. The forest around them was silent except for the wind weaving through branches. Elias hugged himself for warmth. "Where are we?" "Somewhere between Holyoke and Worcester," Calder said. "If we follow the tracks east, there's a telegraph station a mile or two ahead." "You want to send a message?" "I want to see if we're already listed as fugitives." Elias's blood ran cold. "Fugitives? ODMS doesn't allow engineers to walk away." They trekked through snow, their breath floating like ghosts. At last, they reached a tiny signal shack beside the tracks. Inside, lanterns hung from hooks, and a telegraph machine sat on a wooden desk, its copper wires humming faintly. Calder tapped out a coded inquiry. Elias waited, shivering. Seconds later, the reply arrived, short, blunt, and chilling. "Subject Whitford, warrant issued. Detain on site. Subject Shaw, restricted. Deadly force authorized." Elias staggered backward. "They want to kill you." Calder folded the message calmly. "They want to kill both of us. They're just more honest about me." 8. A new direction. "This changes the plan," Calder said. "What plan?" "We're not going to Boston." "But you said." "I know what I said." Calder's voice sharpened. "But now they'll have men waiting at every station along the Boston line. They expect us to seek answers in the city. So we'll go somewhere they won't expect." "And where is that?" Calder leaned over the map pinned on the shack wall and tapped a point west of Worcester. "Springfield Armory." Elias stared. "That's a federal weapons facility." "Yes," Calder said. "And the man we need to meet doesn't live in Boston. He works inside that armory, under a name the government erased." "Who is he?" Calder stepped back, eyes shadowed. "The only surviving engineer who ever produced the same electromagnetic pattern your machine emitted. He disappeared in 1898. ODMS claimed he died. They lied." "What's his name?" Calder exhaled. "Dr. Horace Fenwick." The name meant nothing to Elias. But Calder's expression told him everything. This man was dangerous. This man was brilliant. And this man could explain the circles burned into the mill floor. Elias staggered backward. "They want to kill you." Calder folded the message calmly. "They want to kill both of us. They're just more honest about me." Restated clean ending. Calder leaned over the map pinned on the shack wall and tapped a point west of Worcester. "Springfield Armory." Elias stared. "That's a federal weapons facility." "Yes," Calder said. "And the man we need to meet doesn't live in Boston. He works inside that armory, under a name the government erased." "Who is he?" Calder stepped back, eyes shadowed. "The only surviving engineer who ever produced the same electromagnetic pattern your machine emitted. He disappeared in 1898. ODMS claimed he died. They lied." "What's his name?" Calder exhaled. "Dr. Horace Fenwick." The name meant nothing to Elias. But Calder's expression told him everything. This man was dangerous. This man was brilliant. And this man could explain the circles burned into the mill floor.